say. My grandmother, before her, was an entrepreneur. She used to sell silks. So they say, what is an entrepreneur? Well, an entrepreneur has it in their DNA. So you've just got to recognise exactly who you are. And once you know and you recognise who you are, you're on your way. You've just got to make those baby steps and you've got to move and be confident. So an entrepreneur, I think, what is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is somebody who actually will take a chance and take a challenge. Now, when I followed my mother, and my mother has probably followed her mother. My grandmother was born in Sahara, India. My parents went to Pakistan. My mother was just 16 or whatever, and a year later she got married in Lahore, and then they came to England. So they've been in England since 1951, which is a long, long time ago. But my mother and my father, who were studying, and they started doing property in a very small way, because my mother had that DNA in her. She couldn't just be sitting around, and my father was doing mechanical engineering. So my mother started a factory when she was 22 or 23 in Blackburn, and it was called Nick, Ideal and Son. So that's part of my name, Nick, Ideal and Son. And she made that into a success at a very young age. And that showed, when I look back at her photographs where I was sitting in my office at home, that she was not fazed by anything, just go out and do it. Now, can you imagine? She was very beautiful, and nothing like that. She was amazing. And she had this presence. And a woman from the Far East to come into England, Blackburn, for example, in Princes Street, actually, if anybody knows Blackburn, and would come to Blackburn and start a business at such a young age. In that era, you know, people would look at her and take a double check because she had a bun and she had this unbelievable presence. But that's what it takes. A woman has to have a personality and presence, and most of all, a woman has to have belief in herself. No woman should not believe in herself. It's as simple as that. Every woman has a skill. Every one of us has a skill. It might be art, it might be mechanical, it might be cooking, it might be, you know, but it's got to be a skill. So I was born in 1955, and my mother was working, but we built up a property portfolio. So who am I? What makes me who I am? This woman that you're looking at is not a woman that was born in England and stayed in England all her life. My mother and father drove to Pakistan in 1961. And for a woman to drive a car is, I would say, unheard of. Well, first of all, we can't get to the other side of the world anymore. Things have changed, am I right? But for a woman to drive a car then, so these things you've got to bear in mind. I've watched my parents take, you know, challenges and, you know, not be frightened of doing things. So maybe that comes into us from her, because I have 4 siblings. Well, one has died now. Very successful businessmen, all 4 of them. So when we went to Pakistan, you go to a new country. So who am I? I am that person who went to St. Joseph in Karachi. That was a Christian school. I then had Hindu friends, and I was a Muslim. And I saw my mother, who we had lots of money because we'd sold up, and they bought trawlers in Karachi, 3 trawlers, and had a business. We had a beautiful house there. I lived in. So I've got a memory box of a very beautiful. When I go back into my memory box, it's a very beautiful picture that I see. And I see this picture that will always stay with me. But nothing stays the same. 4 years on, my parents lost all their money because smugglers had taken their trawlers. So from going from wealthy to right down to the bottom, they left one property, 59 Lincoln Road, England, just in case for a rainy day. And that's my advice to any businesswoman here who's going to start a business. Always remember, keep something for a rainy day. Because they came back after 1965, I think, when my father came first, and we followed in 1966. But what did I learn? I learned language. I learned to write Hindu. I learned to mix with Christians and Hindus and Muslims that are all the same. I learned that there are art galleries in Pakistan. I learned there's a very lavish side to Pakistan. I learned about entrepreneurship of women. I learned so much in 360 degrees that I think that's made me who I am today. Maybe I wouldn't have been the same person. But when we came back, that woman who had this entrepreneurial life, my mother, beautiful life in Karachi, came back to sew pajamas. Didn't pay her. And that's what I learned from my mother. And that's what any businesswoman here should remember. When you go up, sometimes you come down, and then you climb up more. But you learn on the way. It's a learning curve. You're learning all the 24/7. You're learning, you're learning, you're learning. I'm still learning. I'm sat here today with you guys. I'm still learning. What an amazing, I've got to thank the team here for inviting me and for us to invite me here to speak with you guys. I'm learning today. I learned of this mosque since 2014 when I used to chair those eight, because they were building this mosque then, and we doing the mosque in there. So I don't know when it opened. When did it open, the mosque? When did the mosque open? Remember?
2016.
Was it 16? Yeah. So 2014 when I heard they were rebuilding it up. So I'm very honoured to be here today myself. So my mother came back to St. Charles, and my father went selling socks from Hinkley. I mean, in a van. So we sort of came from this very lavish life right down to the bottom. But within 4 years, they built their life back. So that shows that if you're a businesswoman and if you want to go forward, don't be phased that who's going to say what, and who's going to look at me if I'm like this, who's going to do this, and never be phased with that. Just do it. We talked about this earlier on. Just go and do it. Now, as time goes by, obviously my parents now in business, and at a very young age I started working with them in my school holidays. So I do all the banking. I love doing money. So I do all the banking, and I used to enjoy that. But by the time I was 16, 17, doing my A-levels, I wanted to do law. And my parents, my mother especially, said, no, you've got to be a doctor. You're not allowed to do law, you've got to be a doctor. But this is why I'm saying to your children, follow their skill. Whatever their skill is, let them go the way they need to go. Because that skill becomes their hobby, that hobby becomes their work, that work becomes their income. You understand? And they enjoy it. I did 1 year for medicine, didn't like it. I was in my summer holidays, came back, said I want to change my subjects. My mother said, I tell you what, go work in, we have factories. Go work around factories. See how you go there. But I don't want to change the subjects. But I really enjoyed the factory. That's where I learned that I can create. I learned about the machinery. My 45 years of life has to be backtracked with me, because how do I explain to you that what I learned from Norman, my manager, that I can create from a machinery an item that we're making negligees, and I created white fronts, terrible, I know, but I learned that you can use that binding and make t-shirts. So I told my parents I don't want to go back to school, and I want to make this work, but you've got to give me the chance. Now I'm 17 and a half, I'm very young, and my mother said, I'm going to give you a chance. And so, I don't know, nobody here will know about Big City Rollers, but they were a group that came at my time. And, printing machines came in that time. So we invested in a printing machine, and we never ever looked back. That business became very, very successful because we had warehouses, and all the stuff would go out of the warehouses. So we were I would say, the empire to start t-shirts, example with these transfers going on, which is now obviously very, very big over 35 years, but 50 years on. I met my husband, and I'm not going to tell you the story of that. He just stopped me on the road and said, "You're going to be my wife," and I said, "Over my dead body," and I'm here 48 years later, married to the same man. But I then got married on my 20th birthday, and then my husband opened my first boutique. Now that's who I really am. My boutique, when I was given that boutique, I think that's when I learned who I really am. We didn't talk entrepreneurship then, by the way. It wasn't a word. It was just you just could do things. But what I learned was I could put things together. I watched my window dresser design my window, and I saw how she put things together. So you never stop learning, do you? You never stop learning. And I used to think, God, yes. I learned about white labelling. I thought, does everybody know what white labelling is here? White labelling is when you get a brand that's, say they're a shoe, for example, say Oasis do a shoe, and it's their shoe, and they put their thing in the shoe, their brand. That is white labelling. So the factory just make them, but you personalise it by putting your brand in it. So Chatem was the name of my boutique, and we white label quite a lot of things. And I used to sell a lot for weddings, and I used to have customers then in 1975/6 for £600. Now I don't know what £600 would equivalent be today. I think it's a lot of money. And I think we put it down to personal shopping today. Even though it went out of fashion over 15 years because all the multiples came in. I think it's come back again now, personal shopping. But I think that's where I was, personal. They've come to me for personal shopping. So for weddings and for different things you learn. So you add more value onto the sale. You get more value. So I learned a lot from my boutiques. I had 3 boutiques, then I did fashion shows. So why did I learn how to use a microphone? I couldn't afford anybody to come talk in the fashion show. I'd have to do it myself. So that's why I learned how to speak on a microphone. Where did I learn about charity? We make money from our fashion shows. What do we do with the money that we've got? We give it to charity. And that's how your life starts evolving and you learn about yourself who you really are as a person. 14 years, we have 3 boutiques. And then I'd also built my first house at 23. Which I'm very proud of. At 23 to build a house as me and my husband, I think pretty cool when I look back now. So I would, you've got an entrepreneurial skill, you use it where you can. Now I'm a visionary. I was giving this example to somebody today, and I don't know you guys here how you think, but I'm a visionary. So I look at a garden and I say, I want the garden to be like that. So I will get the people to help me to create my vision. And I was saying to Borja earlier on, if you have a vision and you can see the end, keep going until you get that vision. Because you'll make it happen, your gut's never wrong. Always follow this. Sometimes you end up following this from other people saying things, but always follow what's inside you, because what's inside you is always right. Then it comes down to family. The most important thing, as Boz has just said as well, is family. As long as your husband's happy and all his clothes are in the wardrobe, and we are multitask women, we are, and we know how to make them think it's their idea, it's actually ours. As long as we make sure our children, we're there for our children, which is another important investment, because our children, for their future, you have to give them the time that they need. As long as you organise it, with being multitask women, you can put it into a system. And that's the most important thing, is organising yourself. I think women are well organised. Any hands up for that? Are we well organised? Yeah, I think we are. We're multitask, aren't we? Men aren't. No, sorry about that, guys, but we're not. So, we then, you've got to put hard work into being an entrepreneur. Now, this word entrepreneur, I never talked about this word before. It's only in the last 15 years when somebody said, "Can you imagine an entrepreneur?" I said, "Oh, is that what I am?" I honestly don't think that way. My brain doesn't think that way. I like something, I do it. I ran my boutiques. I had Bakersfield, I then had Runcorn, I then had Chester. So by the age of 27, I had 3 boutiques. That's a very, very young age when I look back at my children. And then, my husband was in manufacturing and wholesaling. But I learned about designers, I learned about white labelling, I learned about so many skills, but I enjoyed it. Because I enjoyed it, it wasn't a job. So my son, who's now 46, always said I was brought up in the changing room, because he was. He was brought up in the changing room. People thought he had 5 mothers, because each of my staff would take him for a walk, and that's how you get to life. You've got to work. But when you enjoy what husband decided that we needed property. He came home one day and said, "We're opening a restaurant." I said, "What do you mean we're opening a restaurant?" He said, "I've decided, and I want to name it Sheer Calm after the jungle book." I said, Rafiq, I'm in fashion, what are you talking about? He said, "No, we bought these clothes shops." He said, "I'm going to try it, I want to try it." So it's not my brainchild. I might be the co-founder, but I am not the founder of Sheer Calm. I founded many other businesses. And so obviously because I designed, we got together, we created this look, because curry was devalued at that time. Curry was, you go out to the pub, then you come for a curry at the end of the night. And we really felt that actually, and then we looked around, we saw Pizza Expresses were coming up at that time, different brands were coming up. So we thought we should create the Sheer Calm. Like the Italians have got respect, the Chinese have respect. Why haven't curry got respect? So that was in I was pregnant with Kerry, he's now 35, so that was 1987. So we opened our first restaurant, Sheer Calm, in 1987. The queues were down the road, and we didn't have social media then. We didn't have websites. We had nothing. We had word of mouth. You see? So we come from a very different era. You're in today's world. We're in yesterday's world. Yeah? And then we had 20 shops. So one of the shops we took, and my husband he bought me a birthday present. I forgot about that. A year later, he said, "I've got you a surprise as a birthday present." Now, my husband will never give me a surprise, so that's a bit of a job, because he wouldn't even remember my birthday. So the next day, he said they were going, and he said, "I want to get dressed up, we're going for this surprise." "Do you know you bought me a restaurant, Molfina?" I got there, he said, "This is yours," and he gave me the keys. And I'm like, "But I don't want a restaurant, because I used to love my fashion, and I love my new outfit on a Friday, and the girls, and all the things that I like doing." I'm like, "What the hell am I going to do with a restaurant?" And so overnight I flipped into work at night, and I'm thinking, hold on, I don't want this. But then when you get it, you then make a go of it. And so I created because at that time all the multiples were coming in. So he was not wrong, he was right. Because the multiples were coming in at that time, and it was changing, everything was changing, so the smaller shops were beginning to vanish. So maybe it's the right time to let go. Even till today, people know who I am. Somebody from Winslow yesterday recognised me. So then, we then sold our shops, and then moved into, so then we built another house, by the way, in Hale. So that was the second house we built. After 14 years of living in Ivy Lane, we moved to Rossville House. And then I then worked again. We worked tirelessly, which was really hard. Now that was a challenge for me, because obviously to make it work, you've got to be there, and I had to be there. And leaving my children at home Friday nights, it's not easy, yeah. And at that point, when he did buy it, we still lived in Macclesfield, and I used to come home at 2 at night. We would follow each other, he could rush home, I could Altrincham, and then one day he was looking behind and my car's not there. It only flew off the road, ended in a tree. That was unbelievable. And in those days, we hardly wore seatbelts. That particular day I had a seatbelt. So God was with me that day, and my car was free. That's why we then built the house and we moved to Hale, near my parents. But what I'm saying to you is that when you are given a challenge, take it. Because you can make it work if you put your own stamp on it. So from that one, we then got Chester. From Chester, we got Bolton Street in Liverpool. From Liverpool, we got Chester Road. From Chester Road, we got the Trafford Centre. Trafford Centre, we did Express Trafford Centre. So we had a 500-seater Trafford Centre restaurant. Then we did Water in London. Then we did Meadowhall in Sheffield. Before we know it, all our life was all this. But then I had cancer. In 1991, I had cancer of the thyroid, and I also had lymph nodes. So I was very seriously ill. But the worst thing that happened happened. And I got back to work and everything, but what happened, I started getting deafness in my left arm, in my left leg. I jumped out nice with my leg very heavy. I was very slim. I used to work out, but I couldn't stand on my leg because it would crumble. I couldn't pick it up because it was heavy. And this happened over 5-6 months. And I kept telling, I'm not well, there's something wrong. And everybody kept saying, oh no, you're depressed about the cancer, this, that, and that. I said, no, I'm not. There's something not right here. Anyway, I then was paralysed, wasn't I? Completely, all my left side. Doctors had told my family, no chance of us surviving because it's spreading into a respiratory system. Hey, don't say that to me though, because I'm not having that. I have to look, and this is another thing I would advise you, never look on a negative side. Always look on the positive. Always look on the better side of the problem. Because don't make it a problem, make it a challenge. Because otherwise we'll get depressed. When we get depressed and we can't cope, then this takes over this. We have to look at a situation to get out of the situation. I was in hospital 4 months, and this is a last home here. I walked in Buckhurst because my son, who's 5, was 5 then, had come up to me at Mudguy, I'd gone in a wheelchair with my brothers and my children. My husband wasn't with me then, though, yeah. And he came and said, Mama, if you don't get up here, I'm never coming to God's home again. And that got me right here, you know? And all I did was I just looked up to the gate and said, Yoga. That's all I said. And pushed myself up, and I managed to do 2 or 3 steps, which were not easy. It took me quite a long time after that, but that was the beginning of the end, that I can do it. It gave me the confidence that it can be done. And you have to believe in what you do. So what I learned from that, you just reach out to Allah the way you reached out for your knowing. You reach out from the bottom of your heart. If you reach out to Allah, there's always an answer. But you've got to really mean it. Because that day I remember what I did. And alhamdulillah, I moved on and I sort of never looked back. I can't forget how amazing, even now when I think about it, it takes my chest, that experience of being where I was and how it was, because being paralysed is not a nice thing, you know, and there's 5 levels to paralysis, and when you go through each step, they're pretty devastating, you know. But I survived it, and off I came back, carried on, and then from the hospital bed, when I was in hospital, I started from the business. Yeah.
The story about the 300 the families in Bangladesh.
That's starting now. So when I came back, so I was in hospital. And from there, I'd always started looking at business, because I'm always looking for ideas. And even though we have restaurants, it was still not what inside, you know, my days of my fashion is still stuck inside me. And I used to look at ideas for baskets and things like that. I just had this thing. And I was in hospital, and different people coming to see me. And then a friend of mine, Diane, came, and she was from Interflora, she was the director of Interflora. Now, I had heard in Bangladesh at that time that there was 2,000 families, and they were practically on the bread, you know, line, because the FTD, which are the Interflora America, had just dropped and knocked cancelled their away at the last minute. Now, that was their livelihood. So, my brother-in-law was working in Bangladesh at the time, and he told my husband, who said, this is going on, well, I said, can you find out about it? Because Diane, Interflora, I know I have a problem with baskets, maybe there's something here. And like we say, we're here for a reason. If we're going to meet, there's a reason. There's always a reason for everything to happen. So what happened in Bangladesh, I don't speak Bengali. I knew I had lots of friends from Bangladesh, but it was a country that needed help. And I said to Rafiq, I want to buy this factory because I was in hospital 4 months. It's a long time. And we had the telex machine there, you know, the big telex machine thing. So we then got into contact with them, and we then sent money for them to save their factory. And then the next thing, I'd arranged from a hospital bed to sell 4 of their containers to Interflora. And Suki International was born, which was my brand. And that was my floristry brand, which was born. And that was from a hospital bed. You know, that became a multi-million pound business because I didn't realise that there were no competitors with me. There were no competitors because Interflora were it. You got flour and grab or you had cauliflower, but these were all sources, that's all they were. And they had to buy from somewhere. So we then started churning out containers after containers after containers. And before I knew it, I started adding to it my own design, my own paper, ribbons, you name it. So what I did Je t'aime, my boutique, I did it in floristry. We got teachers from France who would teach people how to do hand ties. So the hand ties that you see today, they're not around then in 1992. You know, the Corollas, we brought them to England. So I feel very proud of that actually. But then what happens then Interflora then, my right lung collapsed, I've only got one lung, and my right lung collapsed, I was very, very ill, and my husband had 1,800 customers. I was doing what Amazon are doing today. I was taking an order, churning it out within an hour, and it was gone, and they had it the next. So I was doing what Amazon were doing, but I just didn't know it. You know, as we know, women, your husbands think, oh, she's playing shop. You know, your brothers think, oh, she's having a nice time, just enjoying herself, not realising I'm creating a multi-million pound business. This is the problem with women, they don't take us seriously. And that's why I do this now today, to say believe in yourself and put your stamp there, because the most powerful women are in very powerful places and we just don't know it, and we have to highlight who these women are, to show other women, to show them the way. So Interflora then were very concerned that why is this woman pulling all our business away? Because I was getting all their clients, you know, cauliflower, flower gram, all these customers, 1,800 of them were coming to me. And I was in Atlantic Street, in an industrial estate, in Old Trinidad, nobody realising how big or small I really was. But I was churning the stuff around so fast that it came across as if I was very, very big. And I wasn't that big. It's just that I was at the right time, at the right place. And I made sure I was sitting right next to Interflora in their stands and their shows. So I was getting all their customers. And I was making sure that I stood there doing my own job. So that then turned into a very big business. Interflora were very concerned. And the next thing, Interflora sending me flowers every Friday. The opera's gone over to the fat lady sings. Every Friday I get flowers and flowers. Eventually Tony Bush came to see me and he said he'd like to buy your business. But I said I'm not for sale. Now I didn't realise that I was as big as I was, because I was just carrying on. Yeah? I didn't realise there's no competitors because I was just carrying on because I loved what I do. And I was helping 2,000 families, I built 2 schools, I did a mandar, I did a mosque, because there was a mandar and a mosque in Camilla and Mirzapur, if anybody's from Bangladesh. And Elephant Street was 366 Elephant Street was very famous for me. And I used to go 3-4 times a year to Bangladesh. And it was the most unbelievable experience, because when I went to do the school, you know, you go to get certificates in the school, and I'd gone that year, and I said, so you're talking to the children, and then one child says to me in Bengali, I want to be, he said something to me, I said, what he said? He said, he wants to be like me. I said, what's that? He said, I'm a beauty leader. I said, I couldn't be leader, I didn't realise that, you know, because you're just carrying on what you do, what you know best. So that experience, but I never stopped learning. I never stopped learning that children were jumping in the dirty water, and I'd say to Ghulam, aren't they going to fall ill? He said, no, they're not going to fall ill, because they're immune. They're immune to everything. So they're not going to fall ill at all. And we'd not take any clothes, we'd take suitcases full of sweets. And the children would come from everywhere. It was the most beautiful, beautiful memories. And that's when I started the Innocence Project. I've done a video, which I've got to show you, by the way, of the Innocence Project of Bangladesh. So then, Interflora
fast forward. Meanwhile, Shere Khan was growing, I was pushed onto the side. Interflora then decided that we'd do a deal. But the deal was they wanted me in that deal. I thought, hold on a minute, no, I don't want to be in that deal. You wanted Suki International, you take it then, this is the price, whatever, you've got to be with us for 3 years. But then you learn. I learned that my products used to turn over faster, Interfloras was slower. So don't think that PLC companies know a lot. PLC companies know a lot less than probably you know, or you know, or you know. Because at the end of the day, they're always depending on somebody else, whereas we, as entrepreneurs, we make sure we've got all our ducks in a row, and we make sure everything's together. So never underestimate yourself in front of anybody that's bigger, because they're probably not as big as you think. You're probably much more wiser than they are. I was with 15 men and me, a woman, which was probably not easy, but what I did do, I always made sure I was on this side of the board meeting, so that we'd start from there and hear what everybody had to say right around the end, and then I could add my bit at the end, because I had to learn. I didn't know about PLC companies. So don't ever be frightened. My advice to you, don't ever be frightened. Go out there and learn about it, because without learning, you can't deliver. So I had to learn from them. Anyway, I did my 3 years. I then started my sources. I ended up in Spain. I'm fast forwarding. I ended up in Spain. I worked at Manchester University. And Manchester University then taught me, I wanted to bring out the sources that were sterilised. And because our restaurants were so busy, and as you said, Fawzia, how busy you are, restaurants were so busy because food, curry, has goodness in it. Food, everything has something that your body desires. That's ginger, that's garlic, that's all these herbs and spices are something your body needs inside. So when you crave for a curry, it's because your body's craving for these the goodness. So if we learned that at that time people coming from the airport to go to Shere Khan, they wanted a curry. And there was a curry. And so I said to my husband, why can't I put curries in a jar? Why not? But we had to put it in sterilised. That's where I ended up with Manchester University. Worked with them for 6-7 months, I think. We managed to create the food with sterilisation. And then the next thing, before I know it, it's not what you know, it's who you know, by the way. They introduce you to the right people, so always keep your ears and eyes open, because it's about meeting the right people. And before you knew it, the curries were there in jars. And I got my order from Sainsbury's. I haven't even got the curry done. I haven't even got the jars made. I haven't even got the lids. We've done the design of it. We took the picture. We took my chef. And I got an order for 9 from Sainsbury's, and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't even got everything together yet. But you do, you manage, you sort out, and that became its own business. And I had 11 countries, and I exported to 11 countries. That was Hong Kong, America, Canada. Did all the supermarkets, but unfortunately I had a massive heart attack, and that put the clamor on that. My husband said, enough's enough, I want you out, I don't want you to do any of this. I've got to, the stress is going to kill you, and I just want you to now switch off. Now, I kept thinking in COVID, God, you know, if I had my sources, can you imagine how big it would have been? You know, but you know, maybe he's right, and maybe family didn't come first. He's right. Maybe, you know, I enjoy the meets of my grandchildren now, and I enjoy what my family is around me. But it doesn't stop me working, because I'm just now starting with a textile company next week. So I've been asked to become chair for a big textile company. But the point I'm trying to make, my life is 45 years, 47 years long. The point I'm trying to make, whatever business you do, if you enjoy what you do, and you apply your mind to what you like doing, it will work. You know, it will work. Because how can I explain in half an hour? I've built houses, I've done apartments in London, I can't, it's too much. I have to write a book one day I've got a lot of ups and life's not all up, by the way. There are many downers. Don't think it's all rosy.
life is not all that rosy. Without, when you take a challenge or when you take a chance, you've got to accept that maybe things will go wrong. And then you've got to be prepared for when they go wrong to make them right. But on that journey, you learn again. You never ever stop learning. That's what I've learned. And I'm learning until today, about life. And, when Mummy talking to Mummy about this place, it's unbelievable, how this is an English guy, was looking after this place. So that was amazing. So my life's very extensive, so it's very hard in half an hour to try and fill you all in. But I'm now just becoming, so my fine. Oh, people used to say to me, are you going to do anything next? And I'd say, I know there's one more thing, but I don't know what it is. I know one more thing. And then when I got approached to be a chair for this massive company, I thought that's it. Because I love hotels and supplying hotels with textiles. So at that point, I think I'm going to stop, and I think you can ask me any questions you like, because my story will carry on for a long, long time. But I have 4 grandchildren, 2 lots of twins, 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. Thank you.